Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tell Me. It's Thursday night here in Charlestown in Nevis. And on a Thursday night, it means that we're usually here in the studio to bring you a live show. Dr. Daly and Tulu are off tonight because it's Powell overload, which means that I will be with the younger Powell, Alan Powell, for at least 2 hours tonight. I suspect that we're going to do more than that. But we'll be back with you right after we pay courtesies to our sponsors and get the very good welcome from Alan Powell. Back after this.
Do you know what you're drinking? If you are drinking plastic bottled water, chances are you're consuming plastic contaminants, BPA, and other hormone-disrupting chemicals you cannot see with your naked eye. Those empty plastic bottles take up to 450 years to decompose. In the meantime, plastic bottles are polluting the environment. They are dangerous to the planet and our health. The safer solution is to acquire your own Kangen alkaline water filtration system, and you'll never have to buy toxic bottled water again. Help save the planet and drink clean water for less than the price you'll pay for acid plastic bottled water over the next few years. The Kangen technology is the world's most popular, most acquired water immunizer. For more information, you can call or WhatsApp us on 917-207-1307. That's 917-207-1307. Change your water, change your life.
Pico, the way to go for residential, commercial, and industrial wiring, data, security, UPS, and generator installation. When you need electrical work done now, done right, done at an affordable price, contact Finney's Electrical Company. Call or WhatsApp 665-1916 or email pico_1166@yahoo.com. Pico, the way to go.
Yes, if you tell me, I will tell them that Tell Me is on.
Did somebody say tell me? Then tell me about it. Tell Me with host Carlisle Powell.
There are talk shows, and then there is Tell Me, your very credible source for information. Join us every Thursday night. You certainly won't be disappointed.
Alongside Dr. Kelvin Daly.
Panic and fear, uncertainty that is compounded by a leadership that appears unprepared, uncertain, and indecisive in dealing with the coronavirus pandemic.
And Tulu Weeks.
Until God gets a hold of our Premier's life and transforming, he will go from bad to worse.
We are tired of playing politics. We need to see policies that will change the life of people, especially those of us in the diaspora.
Tell me. Carlisle, I want all women in Nevis rally for change.
Every Thursday at 8 p.m., you can be a part of this conversation by calling 669-7312. That's 869-669-7312. Also available on WhatsApp. Or from the diaspora, 917-460-2187.
Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. with host Carlisle Powell on 2020 Vision Radio and Facebook.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are strictly those of the participants and do not represent those of 2020visionradio.com or its advertisers.
Good night and welcome once again to Tell Me from Charlestown in Nevis. I'm alone in the studio tonight, but I'm not really alone because I have on Zoom Alan Powell. Alan, how are you doing?
I am well.
And I hope that you have your coffee or tea or whatever you drink, because we could be here for a while.
I anticipate such.
Okay, fantastic. Let me start by saying good evening to, as usual, my mother Maria's children, Mary, who is in the U.S., and Merv in the U.S. as well, and their families, to Irma Glenda Skelton, the one before me who believes that she owns me, and said, I think my mother left me in the will for her. She used to correct me. And she said, I deserve every little bit of correction that I got. So good night to you, Glenda. I didn't come out too bad after all, so maybe you did a good job. And of course, the rest of your family. Good night to Everett and Heather across the Tortola and their families. My brother Trevor, who is here in Nevis. Trevor, you got to pass by me. I have a message for you. You got to pass by me. And Shireen and Caden, of course, to you, Alan and Dahlia. Hope that you're doing well. And of course, you can send out your good night greetings.
Well, I just want to wish Chef Jeffers a happy birthday again. Yesterday was her birthday, but it is nothing wrong. She said that she gonna take the show tonight as her birthday gift.
Which means that we got to be good.
Indeed.
Okay, I wish that the technician can turn you up a little louder because you are not peaking as high as I want you to peak, and I want to hear every word from you tonight. We'll do the birthday greetings, and trust me, we are not going to be singing the birthday song tonight. I was busy today because I intended to practice to prove to Daly and Tulu that I could sing, but I didn't get a chance. Today is the birthday of Anesta Nisbet over there in the UK, of my classmates Abo and Abo, that's Abonati Libod, and David Grant here in Nevis, to Mauricia Walters, very happy birthday to you, and to Kelvin Hobson coming in from your mom, who says that you are her favorite son, and of course the rest of the Perry family over there in Cotton Ground and across the world. Friday 26th, Vincie Rogers will celebrate. On Saturday the 27th, I have Jada Collis. On the 28th, I have quite a few persons. I have Eddie. I have my very good girlfriend Erica Gilbert, who will be celebrating. I have Kati, all on the 28th, which is Sunday. And on Monday the 29th, I have Steve Manners. Steve, your birthday is on a Monday, and you should be doing a show on Monday as well. And so those are the persons who I have celebrating between now and next week, Wednesday. You have anybody? You already gave a belated birthday greetings, Alan. Anybody else?
No, I don't have. Well, Nidhi is actually also celebrating her birthday. She and Dahlia are gone out now.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so those are the persons I have. And listen, I don't even have a recording of the birthday song, so you're in plenty trouble tonight. We only saying happy birthday. We are not singing happy birthday. I haven't heard Alan sing in a long time, so I don't know about his singing voice.
No, it's not good.
Okay, somebody already messaged me to tell me, Carlisle, you got to bring up the video on the screen. And so let me see if I can get that video to switch over on the screen so that people could see us. They say they want to see us. I think they want to see you more than they want to see me, Alan. So how things?
Things are well. I'm here. I'm looking at what's going on with you, and there are a number of things going on around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So just taking in all the news. I see y'all have American ships off the coast of Venezuela. It's just a lot is happening right now all over the world.
And it's more than just American ships off the coast of Venezuela. I don't think that they're there by accident. The excuse is that they're there to keep an eye on narco trafficking. And they have taken now to being judge, jury, executioner, small boats, they're blowing them out of the water. They're not trying to stop them and say, hey, listen, we are going to do searches. These fellows are dead before they know they're dead.
And I also see that the Russians are coming in to back up the Venezuelans. So it's just something to pay attention to. As I said, there are a number of areas around the world. There was also, I think, Israel bombed Qatar.
Mm-hmm.
Last week. They don't hear anybody talking about this, but that has put a damper on the negotiations. And then you still also see in the UN, France has recognized Palestine as a state. I think the UK. So just, as I said, a number of interesting geopolitical things happening.
And the UN General Assembly is happening now. but the leader the leader had to give his address from back home under duress because he was denied a visa by the US. But Israel is there in person.
Which leader was denied?
Well, I expected all the leaders from around the world. So you know they have all this bombing in Palestine and so on. He wasn't given a visa to attend. I mean, if it's real democracy, I mean, just give him a visa, let him come. Muammar Gaddafi used to get his visa.
Vladimir Putin, who has a warrant out for his arrest, recently came to Alaska.
Okay then.
So, the exceptions can be made.
Very, very certainly so. Okay, let me bring you back home. We're going to get back there because, listen, I don't want people to think that it is by accident that those warships, and in that great number, are patrolling the Caribbean seas. Plus, I just saw something this evening on the news where a whole, I think every single general and admiral have been called back to the US for some big meeting which is going to happen shortly. This is normally something that precedes war.
It would, in my estimation, be a mistake. I think their focus is really China. So if they are caught up, hung up over here, also hung up in the Middle East, also have obligations in Russia, you begin to get spread thin very quickly. But as you say, we're going to focus now on home. And
yes.
Even before we start to focus on home, I wanted to say something before we begin. Recently, I've been seeing some social media posts speaking about how people are obsessively targeting the Premier. And I would like to just point out that the word Premier means, it is an indication of first. This is the First Minister. This is the leader of the country. When we look at any other country, you don't remember who the vice presidents are. You don't remember who the deputies are. Nobody does be calling on Marco Rubio. First of all, we look towards the leadership and what the leadership is doing, and there should be fair critique as far as that goes. I would not, and I've been very consistent about this, I don't think that there should be personal attacks with regards to whoever is in the office. But any critique of the what is going on from the office itself, I think is a valid critique and is part of what we always hear is a bustling democracy. So, Mr. Premier, if the pressure is too much, it is an indication in my mind that, take a break. You don't have to have all the power. Somebody else could hold it. But I just want to make sure that people understand I'm not for the personal stuff, but as part of a democracy, you must indeed provide critiques and look at what the leader of the government is doing at all moments in time.
By the way, we want housekeeping matter. We want to tell you to hold your calls for at least the first hour. Alan and I will get into some discussions, and we want to be able to finish at least some of what we have on the agenda before we start taking your calls. But you will get the chance to call. So hold your calls. We'll take your calls and we'll tell you when we can take your calls. But then again, on that very same matter, the Premier is the only one who has been attending press conferences. He has a full cabinet, including a legal advisor, including people who have represented him on his show when he's not able to go on a Wednesday, or when he chooses not to go on a Wednesday. I mean, it is fair comment if people look at the First Minister, who is the Premier, and challenge him, since he is not allowing his ministers to be exposed. And I just want to put that on the record. He goes and stand up every single month. If he is not present, the deputy cannot represent him. If there's a matter on the hospital, Brand cannot represent him. If there's a legal matter, the legal advisor cannot represent him, and so on and so on. So it must be fair comment if people target him, because he's the one who is exposed.
Well, I treat it like how he treating the supervisory board. I feel like he is only gonna allow you to speak if you have the qualifications to speak. So I could only suppose that those individuals have not demonstrated. I saw recently a post by the sports director, and he said, "I say what I say, and I ain't gonna take it back."
Okay.
And he had to remove the post.
Okay.
Because he thought he could have an opinion, until he was told, "No, that can't be your opinion."
No, it is his opinion, but he can't express it.
Indeed.
Okay. Parliament met in Nevis today. The Assembly met down there at Hamilton House. And there was some questions which were posed to ministers by the Honorable Janice Daniel Hodge. One of them queried the airport matter and the EIA. Spencer Brand's response was interesting. So we're going to start with Spencer and the airport. And Spencer Brand this morning told Parliament that the Department of Physical Planning and Environment has not yet approved the EIA study for the planned expansion of the Van Samre International Airport. And Brand explained that there was still some outstanding issues. Now, the public was only told this because Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge raised the concern. This government has given dates from last year when the airport would start. Isn't it a little bit surprising to you that the EIA has not yet been approved, but the government is forging ahead full speed with plans to start and have given dates for starting?
That is the concern that I have. I actually listened to Government at Work, and the Premier was on that last week with this and that, and he had indicated that there is already some testing going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
And he as well indicated that some heavy equipment is being moved. So it is confusing that the project has seemingly already begun, at least in preliminary stages, when the EIA, which we were told is so wonderful, is so complete, and I think it was completed about 2 years ago. So I do not understand why an EIA, which was so complete, and I think it was made available at the library, has not been accepted, and there are still issues. That is definitely.
But it shows clearly that the government is prepared to just not pay any attention to their own physical planning department.
Well, I will remind people that an election is coming. The plan for the airport, I think, was supposed to be for December 2026. Now I am hearing December 2027. December 2027 will be 5 years approximately since the last election. Everything that you are seeing, all of the flailing right now, is like somebody playing gambling on a lot of machines, and they just need one of them to hit. So we're seeing all of these things being forced through, being rushed. I don't think that when we speak about other things, I think you're going to see a pattern of rushing to get through legislation.
We have had several updates which are non-updates on the airport. Well, let's just listen to one of them.
The airport project, I can confirm that landowners are actually being paid. The largest tract of land, I believe, was some 18 acres. That landowner has been paid, and we have been paying landowners as we go and closings as we go. So there has been no undue delay there. other than the initial delays which were associated with just the drawdown of the funds.
And the Premier, in that particular update, which was given on the 28th of last month, never mentioned to the public that the EIA had not been approved. As far as the people were concerned, landowners were being paid, so all was good.
I would also like to correct his English. You cannot say that there was no Andrew delay except for the delay. By definition, Mr. Premier, there was Andrew delay. Like, we don't argue about the specifics. That is not how the English language works.
Okay, so they are pressing ahead, even though there is no approved EIA. But that does not surprise me, because I am here in Nevis and I have not yet seen the EIA for the hospital. And they have exceeded $20 million on that particular project. So it seems as if there's a pattern.
They're definitely, and what we have to understand is any time is a delay, time is money.
Correct.
You can't forget that time is money. So we can't pretend that we start something or we commission this work and then we stop doing it and that stays there. If you spend money now and 7 years later you don't have the finished project, all of those funds are sunk costs. Until you do anything about the actual project, we have nothing to show. And it is costing you money, because when you would have proposed and said, for example, we would finish something 2019, that is 6 years of revenue that you wouldn't be able to collect.
I got you. Okay. Let me again suggest to my technician that I want you to see if you can come in and boost the audio for Alan, because I'm getting a few messages from people who say that they can't hear him clearly. So see if we can boost that audio a little bit. Ron Daniel is celebrating his birthday tomorrow. I like to tell people, send me the messages early so that I can add people to the list. But Ron is celebrating his birthday tomorrow, and it is his first birthday since he lost his parents. So Ron, we know you are going to celebrate. It might be a little bittersweet, but we want you to celebrate still, and treat it as best as you can. Alan, the Genery Mall here in Nevis, and we're just warming up to a number of subjects. The tenants in the Genery Mall here in Nevis, I am told, today got the shock of their lives, in that while they were there going about their business, the water department shut down the water supply. This is under the control of Minister Brantley, I think. The tenants had been getting water all along. They had not received bills. I believe that they thought that the water was included in whatever rents they were paying. And some people have been in there for ages. Some people have been operating in there for more than 20 years. And all of a sudden, without any warning, nobody phoned them up and said, hey, listen, we have changed the terms of the lease, and we want to discuss this with you. They just found that they had no water. This don't make a whole lot of sense to me, but this is what I'm told by some tenants happened to them today.
Are there any government offices in that mall?
Yes, you have immigration upstairs.
Okay, but this is only for the. This was all persons, all private businesses.
Well, I'm going there. I'm going there tomorrow myself. I was off island today. I was in St. Kitts at the Fight for Fun finals, and so I was not in Nevis when I got the news, but it came from a very reliable source.
The one thing I will be fair and say is that I don't think that there is anything that's free.
I agree.
And just because you're not seeing a bill, you're supposed to ask what is taking place. I think you need to find out. I don't know what what is the nature, as you say, of the lease agreements? So maybe there would be something in the lease agreement that actually would say, well, hey, utilities is part of what you're paying. So without knowing all of the information, I can't really.
I'm going to ask that question myself. 2020, we're here in a building which is owned by TDC, and there is a set fee in the lease monthly for water. I know that. They know that. But if in the case of these tenants at the Genery Mall, if you've been there for 10 years, nobody ever presented you with a bill and your lease, I don't even know if, well, I'm going to have to ask if the lease includes water. But if that is the case, and then all of a sudden they shut you down because whoever is in charge of the project, you, Alan Powell, might be my landlord. If you are accustomed to paying water on that particular meter and you don't pay it, and I, the tenant, suffer, that simply can't be fair. But we're going to pick up that another time. I'll have to get the facts.
And as you said that too, well then, this might be a situation where the issue is not with the water department, but with the actual landlord.
Possible.
So
but all of that is still government. Bullwis used to say all bike man are bike man. Whether it's the Port Authority who controls it or the government itself, the Port Authority is wholly owned by government. So Bullwis, the all bike man are bike man, is a government entity.
But does the government own the Genery Mall though?
Yes.
Yes.
It is operated by NASPA. But who owns NASPA? 100% of NASPA belong to the government. Okay. We'll explore that further. Okay.
The government, in this case, if the government is the landlord, then you still facing the same hurdle.
I agree.
What happened? No, I would have thought that the landlord was a private owner of
No.
the building. But if that's not the case, then you could have some recourse to the landlord. But that would depend on the terms.
Exactly, and we'll have to find out the terms. But listen, just to say, in that place, you have people who sell food too. So I come to work to prepare my food and there is no water. I have a challenge. I believe that in cases like those, you pick up the phone and you make a call. And you say, hey, listen, this is the issue. I am giving you X amount of time to sort it out. Rather than just to come to work and somebody plug the water, the meter, and there is no water. I mean, that's not good for business.
Definitely not.
Okay. Next issue. I want to take you to audit reports. I know that you have been following those over time. And the audit reports recently, and I have a stack of them here with me tonight, they have been making very worrisome reading. In that, year after year, the auditors report for the Nevis Island administration, they show a particular trend. For some time, they focused on the ordering process. And I just read a paragraph for you, which is repeated in several audit reports. Audit further identifies a significant issue in the ordering process, particularly the absence of specified quantities for items requested in orders. This deficiency poses a potential risk for fraudulent activities. And we are aware that there are some departments where, and this one I read came from the 2023 audit report, so it is recent. We're aware that some persons have been going to suppliers and the order as written up, whether from the officer or from the officer, might just say cement. When it is intended for somebody to take 5 bags of cement, they just say cement, and somebody conveniently put 50 bags of cement, which means that that is what is being spoken to by the auditor. Fraudulence. 2 bags go on the job, 48 go someplace else. And the government lose a lot of money by these fraudulent activities. But I don't think that they are paying attention, because go back to the audit report for 2022. Additionally, The audit report identifies a weakness in the ordering process, where the quantities of items requested are not specified in the order. I'm not reading from the same audit report. This is the one for 2022 saying the same gospel thing. Certainly, the Ministry of Finance, which is headed by the Premier, ought to have latched on to that and tightened up that, but obviously they have left it open for whatever reason.
Definitely, that is a consistent thing. I've spoken about that issue before. I would like to. Well, I'm wondering because I'm on the website right now, and the 2023 audit report is not available on the government website. And I was also actually looking forward today to have the 2024 audit report before Parliament. I thought that would have been one of the things. I think that the deadline for that to be presented is, I think, 9 months after the end of the financial year. So this is the 9th month. So I would have thought that would have been ready, but I am also looking forward to the 2024 audit report so that we could find out the latest information, especially as the Premier has touted these things and said that this is part of the accountability and transparency aspect. So
and good governance.
I'm looking forward to these.
So we're talking 23 and 24 not available up to the time that we're speaking.
Yeah, 23 is, you could see that you have 23. I have seen physical copies of 23. The digital copy of 23, I'm on the website right now.
Correct.
They only go up to 22. So the 23 one should have been there from since last year, and I would hope that the 24 one is put before the people as soon as possible so that we are able to go through these documents and see what notes the auditor has. And it's also important in light of the fact that we do not have a functioning public accounts committee. So this
Correct.
is kind of the best I could do to find out what somebody feels, somebody who is not a part of the administration feels about how the money is being spent. So it's important.
I'm glad that you led into that, because we now have to move to the point where Mark Brantley was on more than one occasion identified as the person who was supposed to be in charge of the Federal Public Accounts Committee. On more than one occasion, we have seen the news story in the newspaper going as far back as 2007, where he, along with Sean Richards and Timothy Harris and Patrice Nisbet, were identified as members of the Public Accounts Committee, with Mark Brantley being the person chairing the Public Accounts Committee. But he has not functioned. Let me play a couple of clips.
That when we're talking about fair share, we're talking about an overall analysis of the financial arrangements between these two islands. Somebody asked me the other day, what is the GDP of Nevis? And I can't answer. I can't give an accurate statement because there is so much leakage out of the Nevis economy. To customs, corporate taxes, VAT. That even though we here on the ground are seeing and feeling the economic expansion that's happening on the island, the government revenue is not rising by the level or to the degree that it should.
This is an admission from the Premier of the country. But notably, in the Nevis Island Assembly, there has been no Public Accounts Committee. And Mark Brantley seems to be happy with this. And he's hiding behind the fact that there is no leader of the opposition in the parliament. In Barbados, Mae Motley won, her party won every single seat in Barbados. One person defected and went across to the opposition. And Mae Motley made that one person, MP Thorne, the leader of the opposition. Mark has been hiding behind the fact that he does not want to recognize a leader of the opposition in Nevis. To say that since there is no leader of the opposition, there is nobody to appoint as the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee. He was asked the question, why is there no Public Accounts Committee? Listen to this.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
So let me ask you something. Ain't you responsible in forming the Public Accounts Committee?
Yes, the leader of the opposition. Yes.
So how come you ain't forming? So you can't say nothing about the public accounts then? That is what you're saying. Let me hear what you're going to say to that.
All right, caller. Thank you very much for that. I have simply said that in my recollection, we've never had a Public Accounts Committee. It is something, however, that I think ought to be formed. It is something that I'm interested in getting going, but we've never had one in the history of the country. So if you want to attack me to say I have no interest, then I suppose you're attacking everyone else, that nobody has ever had an interest. But that is not the case, because we obviously debate expenditure each year in the Parliament. We have an opportunity to do so, and that has been the model that we have employed. Not to say that the Public Accounts Committee is not important, nor to say that it ought not to be formed, but we've never had one. I didn't think it's now in Nevis over the years, and we've been independent since 1983, so I believe this year makes, 42 years of independence. We've never had that committee in place. So if you want to attack me for that, well, just add it to the list. That you had a long list earlier, just add that one as well, and see how far that would take you or take matters.
But Alan, that is simply not the case. You have this story about when he was appointed in 2007?
This is from Bucky Gattet, and this is actually a quote that he gave. He said, "This Public Accounts Committee is a critically important committee for purposes of maintaining a check on the government and its use of public funds to ensure that funds are allocated appropriately and to the purpose to which they should be allocated." It goes on to say, according to him, the Public Accounts Committee has the authority to ask questions about government expenditure and to even call for civil servants to stand before it to shed light. Mark was appointed the head of the Public Accounts Committee in 2007 and once again in 2010. The fact that the Public Accounts Committee has in his mind never functioned in those 8 years is directly his responsibility. I also have a story to contradict what he said, in terms that in 2005, Sean Richards would have asked the committee, oh yes, see it here. In recent years, the Public Accounts Committee has been largely dormant, though it did stir briefly following the 2005 closure of the sugar industry, when MP Sean Richards called on the body to look into the distribution of severance payments to the SSMC's former workers. Due to the sudden death of its chairman, the then opposition leader, Mr. Malcolm Gishard, the inquiry never got underway. So Mark would have been the person to replace Malcolm and should have been the one to continue that process. His failure has been the failure of the Public Accounts Committee. He not only failed from 2007 to 2015, he picked up his failure in 2022 and he has continued. So he has had a decade at least in charge of the Public Accounts Committee, and to this day there is no functioning of it. The other thing to note, as he said, the Public Accounts Committee has a lot of power. And the reason why that first clip was played, when the Premier suggests, for example, there are leakages and he does not know the GDP of Nevis, this is how you, as the leader of the opposition, could ask for inquiries into these type of things so that you could understand the economic impact and argue for fair share in a more effective way. So, Mr. Premier, when I want the Public Accounts Committee, I want it so that it could assist you to get the information that you need to argue for the fair share. But there's only one thing, Mr. Premier, you're actually gonna have to work.
And maybe that is the reason why it has not been appointed, because the Premier seems to be allergic to hard work.
And from his quotes, you know that he knows the committee, he knows the power of the committee, and he is someone who always speak about the political will, the political desire. So, Mr. Premier, if you have the stones, Mr. Premier, get them out and let we go with the Public Accounts Committee. With regards to Nevis not having a leader of the opposition, the Public Accounts Committee is contemplated as a standing committee. And where there is no leader of the opposition, then members of the opposition would simply be on the committee, but they would not be the chair. So there could be a Public Accounts Committee right now, and somebody from the government is the chairperson. You don't necessarily have to offer it to the leader of the opposition, since there is none. It would be good etiquette to do it still, because you would still have the majority in that case. But there is nothing to stop the functioning of the Public Accounts Committee except for the Premier. And in this case, he does not even have to be on the Public Accounts Committee.
Absolutely.
He could let other people do that. So this is, once again, if he has the political will and not the will to say, well, I think this should happen, it's something what would be good, and it's in a bustling democratic, we need him to actually get it in motion so that he could be held accountable, not just by press conference, but by the opposition.
But Alan, I'm going to play that clip again just for emphasis, because the Premier stated that he is unaware that there has ever been a functioning Public Accounts Committee when he was a chairman. Let's play that clip again.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
So let me ask you something. Ain't you responsible in forming the Public Accounts Committee?
Yes, the leader of the opposition. Yes.
So how come you ain't forming? So you can't say nothing about the public accounts then? That is what you're saying. Let me hear what you're going to say to that.
All right, caller. Thank you very much for that. I have simply said that in my recollection, we've never had a Public Accounts Committee. It is something, however, that I think ought to be formed. It is something that I'm interested in getting going, but we've never had one in the history of the country. So if you want to attack me to say I have no interest, then I suppose you're attacking everyone else, that nobody has ever had an interest. But that is not the case, because we obviously debate expenditure each year in the Parliament. We have an opportunity to do so, and that has been the model that we have employed. Not to say that the Public Accounts Committee is not important, nor to say that it ought not to be formed, but we've never had one. I didn't think it's now in Nevis over the years, and we've been independent since 1983, so I believe this year makes, 42 years of independence. We've never had that committee in place. So if you want to attack me for that, well, just add it to the list. That you had a long list earlier, just add that one as well, and see how far that would take you or take matters.
I have never known anybody in the long life that I've lived to date who can lie with such eloquence.
Well, part of the thing that I'm discovering, I think that the Premier has a 7-year time delay. So just like with Team Unity, anything after 7 years, he can't really remember anything after that. So unless you are and listen, remember, even when you're in government with him, cause he don't remember about Akila Byron, and he don't even remember about Pam, who he won a joint election with a couple of years ago. So I think that there may be some kind of time delay. Maybe the researchers and his team are not doing a good job to make sure that he does not utter these type of things. But and the distinction that should be made here is also Denzel Douglas appoint him as the head of the Public Accounts Commission. When he became the head, he didn't do anything. But at the very least, he was appointed as the chairman of that. All the praise that he has given Dr. Joe, and just now you hear him say that he's interested in farming the committee. I have not heard anything when he's discussing with Dr. Joe over fair share and all these type of things about a public accounts committee. You don't hear the interest when it counts.
Let's play one more clip because he was given another opportunity to expound on the Public Accounts Committee.
Since your day, you ever go on a mission of public accounts?
The Public Accounts Committee has not been formed, no.
So why not formed?
Well, it has just not happened. It has not happened yet. It has never been never been formed. So it is a matter that needs to be attended to, and it is a matter that I intend to deal with, but it has not been formed. It has never been formed. In fact, I don't think we've ever had a functioning Public Accounts Committee in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis.
What can I say? We know that Mark Brantley has been appointed chairman of the Public Accounts Committee and that it has not functioned. Let me read a little bit of a story. And it says, PM Harris accuses Mark Brantley of presiding over a non-functioning Public Accounts Committee. Just briefly, and this is a story from 2017. Prime Minister, the Honorable Timothy Harris, has slammed his Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Mark Brantley, for presiding over a non-functioning Public Accounts Committee when he was its chairman for nearly 8 years, from 2007 to 2015. I mean, the information is out there. It's just unfortunate that Mark Brantley is unaware that he was chairman of that very important committee from 2007 until 2015. And that it just so happened that he is in the parliament in Nevis and has refused to ensure that a public accounts committee functions. But if a public accounts committee functions here in Nevis with all the teeth that the law allows, they would be inquiring into the expenditure at the hospital. And maybe Mark does not want that.
I have a little more here from the same story too.
Mm-hmm.
It says, when asked if the Public Accounts Committee had the authority to request access to any government accounts, this is very key in the fair share debate. In when you say they're hiding money CBI wise. So when asked if he could access to government accounts, Mr. Brantley replied, "That is my understanding, that once sums have been expended by the government, then the Public Accounts Committee can seek to ascertain how those sums are being spent, whether they were budgeted for, how they were allocated, and indeed whether or not the purpose for which they were allocated is being met in practice." So it's a wide mandate, and it's clearly something that has to be used judiciously, but nonetheless used to ensure transparency in government expenditure. All of these are the words of Mark Brantley. He said he has interest. He has been the leader of the opposition for 2.5 years. And when I hear reporters ask him about him being kind of soft opposition-wise, I'm not concerned with the Premier having a relationship. I'm not concerned with the Premier supporting certain legislation by the government of the day. When I see no opposition, I see institutions that are supposed to hold the government accountable, and the leader of the opposition, all he could do is say, well, I'm interested in it. I'm interested in accountability. Well, at least I'm interested in saying that I'm interested. And that is what I mean when I say the man is good at talking about talking. He's interested in talking about accountability, not the actual work. And furthermore, this is why I say, my God, Alexis Jeffers is not a local minister anymore. Mr. Premier, if you cannot do the work, if it's too much for you, let Alexis Jeffers go be the leader of the opposition. Let he go do it. You do not have either the political will, desire, I don't know, the stones to do this aspect of the job. So let somebody else do it who has the hunger. You got to fight in politics, you know?
Correct.
You got to fight.
Let me read something else from that report, because I want people to understand the gravity of the situation. The Premier has selective memory, and as leader of the opposition, he has worse than selective memory. He has dementia. So let me read something else from that report. Timothy Harris, then Prime Minister, said there is in fact something called a Public Accounts Committee, but it never functioned. It never functioned. There was not one single report ever made in the Parliament, said Dr. Douglas, who accused the PAC chairman and now his foreign minister of not sending even half of a sentence. Not even half of a sentence was ever presented on a letterhead. And in relation to this entity called the PAC, not even half a sentence by Mark Brantley. And I could understand why, because he said that no, there was never one, it never functioned. So as far as he is concerned, the committee does not exist, never existed in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, even though there is evidence to suggest that for 8 years he was the chairman of that Public Accounts Committee, which just died a natural death, and which explains why he is not in a hurry to have one appointed here in Nevis. But we're coming back, Alan. We have a lot to talk about, but let's make sure that our sponsors are happy.
Pico, the way to go for residential, commercial, and industrial wiring, data, security, UPS, and generator installation. When you need electrical work done now, done right, done at an affordable price, contact Pico's Electrical Company. Call or WhatsApp 665-1916 or email pico_1166@yahoo.com. Pico, the way to go.
Do you know what you're drinking? If you are drinking plastic bottled water, chances are you're consuming plastic contaminants, BPA, and other hormone-disrupting chemicals you cannot see with your naked eye. Those empty plastic bottles take up to 450 years to decompose. In the meantime, plastic bottles are polluting the environment. They are dangerous to the planet and our health. The safer solution is to acquire your own Kangen alkaline water filtration system, and you'll never have to buy toxic bottled water again. Help save the planet and drink clean water for less than the price you'll pay for acid plastic bottled water over the next few years. The Kangen technology is the world's most popular, most acquired water immunizer. For more information, you can call or WhatsApp us on 917-207-1307. That's 917-207-1307. Change your water, change your life.
Thank you very much. We are back, and it's Powell Overload number 5. Alan Powell is with me via Zoom. Alan, I want to talk to you now about dialysis. The Premier is on record as saying that he can't recall that there was a donation towards dialysis from the Taiwanese. But, and let me take you back a little further. Shortly after the elections in 2006, in which the NRP won, Hensley Daniel, then Minister of Health, was directed by the Premier to, find out what we could do to assist those patients who were suffering renal failure. And Hensley did a comprehensive report. And I went as far as to identify machines coming all the way from the port of Haifa in Israel, and also made sure that they arrived in Nevis. There were 2 machines in one container. They got to Nevis shortly after the government lost the election in 2013. Those machines were left to rot, even though they included part of the payment was a gift from the MUA here in Nevis. Mark Brantley took a team down to Guyana, said that they were going down there to identify persons who would be working with the dialysis units and with dialysis, with patients requiring dialysis. Said that 2 machines were not enough, so they were looking to get 6. You're talking 2013, early in the year. 12 years later, we still don't have any dialysis units here in Nevis. Our patients are still going to St. Kitts. But if I take you back to the year 2018, the Taiwanese donated $167,000 to purchase hemodialysis machines and water systems for chronic kidney disease. The Premier don't remember any of that, Alan.
Well, I just wanted to know. I send you the story, and I also put this story in both chats, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. I was aggravated about it. We don't want. I don't think we have the audio, but the Premier specifically denied. I heard this receiving any money for dialysis, and so I am on the Republic of China Taiwan Embassy in St. Kitts and Nevis, their website, and there's a story from 2008 to 2018, sorry. And the story starts: the Republic of China Taiwan continues to make good on its promise to assist the Nevis Island administration in its quest to arrest and control chronic kidney disease. On November 4, 2018, His Excellency Tom Lee, resident ambassador to St. Kitts and Nevis, handed over a $167,000 check to Honorable Mark Brantley, Premier and Minister of Health, at his Penny's Estate office. We are here to present a check in the amount of $167,000 as part of the funding for the project of control and prevention of chronic kidney disease. The amount is meant to procure hemodialysis machines and the water systems, etc. I really believe in the near future, all the CKD patients, they don't have to travel to St. Kitts anymore. They can enjoy the service in Nevis, he said. So I feel like it was aggravating, and it's part of the Premier does not have the memory. I do not know if this is some kind of early onset dementia. Hopefully it's not, Mr. Premier. I hope you get your faculties checked out. But it was disturbing to me when he said he did not recall ever receiving any money. Is nearly $500,000.
Is a lot of money
to buy dialysis machine.
But let me play a clip and remind you that there was a team that was brought here. Odell Busso was involved in that team coming to Nevis to give some assistance and to have people check their conditions in terms of their kidneys. And the Premier, then as Minister of Health, did not give permission for the nurses to work with this overseas team. And I don't think he was pressed, but he made this comment.
I take full responsibility for the decision not to partner with this event in Nevis. And if it were to happen again tomorrow, my response and my approach of this ministry would be the same.
He's not apologetic. Did not allow the nurses to work with the team. They went ahead and did their work anyhow, thanks to people like Dr. Grenville Libert, who assisted greatly. But the Premier was not apologetic. He said, I take full responsibility. And if it were to happen again, I would do the same thing. That is troubling. So when we fast forward to 2025 and the Premier does not remember receiving a check for a significant amount of money, $167,000, I want the Public Accounts Committee to be in place to ask what happened to that money. Where did it go?
I think that the also great issue with this is not like you're telling a lie. Are you misremembering something with regards to somebody in the opposition? These are friends. The Taiwanese have been very helpful. We see it in Malcolm Gishard Park. We see it in other ventures. Over the years, the Taiwanese have been very helpful. So when you get this and you're kind of misremembering, you're saying you never received that, I would think that the Premier is lucky that NRP hasn't raised this with the embassy to say, give us some clarity. Because it could have been much worse in other scenarios.
You're right, because you're talking about a friendly government that made a donation and the check disappeared. The Premier said he can't recall getting the money. It just seemed to have disappeared.
I don't. It is alarming.
I went to a Renal Society dinner, Alan, and listen to this comment.
2013 has been a momentous year for the society. We are transitioning from just a group of enthusiasts into a developmental partner with the Nevis Island administration. After 12 years of lobbying and more than 12 years of transatlantic and trans-Caribbean commuting by our patients, seeking a stay of execution from renal failure, we were brought to the threshold of realizing our dream.
Brought to the threshold of realizing our dream when the NRP government bought and had landed in Nevis 2 brand new dialysis units in a container. And those units were never put to use by the CCM government that followed the NRP government. Left to rot, and with the reagents being left to expire. And we still have patients who are going to St. Kitts. Just recently, they had some issues down in St. Kitts with their dialysis unit. And our patients here in Nevis could not be dialyzed. This is frightening, Alan, troubling. And especially after having had 2 machines landed in Nevis for the sole purpose of looking after patients.
So we consistently see that he has maybe one of the things that I realized too. You have to be alarmed when the Premier says he has interest in things. He has said that the hospital is a top priority. He's very interested. We don't see any movement. So perhaps when he says he has interest in something, it is a different kind of alarm we should be feeling. And for persons who may feel like the Premier may try to disenfranchise them or get back at them, maybe his interest is where you want, because when he interested in you, nothing does happen. You're going to be all right. So don't be afraid. Do what you got to do.
I hear you. I got you. Okay. You ready to talk about fair share?
Indeed.
Okay. We have had many comments from the Premier with respect to fair share. And we try to group them in a manner that you might be able to follow the discussions. And so we're going to be playing some of those clips for you now. Alan, I don't think that I have them in the specific order that you requested. But we're going to play some clips and let you understand what has been happening with respect to fair share. Let me start with this one.
Signed. What did that agreement provide? It provided various things, but in part, the agreement provided for a fair share for Nevis from the proceeds of the Citizenship by Investment program. It spelled it out in terms that the people of Nevis would get a share of the Citizenship by Investment proceeds based on population. That's what the agreement said. And that agreement, let me reiterate, was between PLP, PAM, and CCM. On the basis of that agreement, we went into a coalition as an election, and on the basis of that agreement, Timothy Harris of the PLP who won a single seat in 2015. That is, the PLP won one seat. He was given the role of Prime Minister. He was given, as we would say in local parlance, the big chair. And he was given the big chair. Why? Because that is what we agreed.
Hold a minute. Let me play a second one.
Promised by Team Unity. What did Dr. Timothy Sylvester Harris of PLP, Vance Winkworth Amory of CCM, and Sean Kenneth Richards of PAM promise each other and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis? There was, friends, the fundamental promise that no leader would serve more than 2 terms as Prime Minister.
That second one, I put that in there because Mark Brantley mashed up a whole government in the second term of a Prime Minister with 3 years to run and had the fundamental argument that, hey, listen, we promised in Fiduciary that nobody would serve more than 2 terms. But how is it you know that somebody is going to serve more than 2 terms without having discussions? And up to that point, Dr. Harris had not said, listen, I'm going to run for more than 2 terms. I'm going to serve for more than 2 terms. But going back to the first clip, he seems to be trying to defend his no position by saying that there was an agreement between CCM, PAM, and Dr. Harris, PLP, but that he didn't have an agreement with Labour Party and Drew. But Fiduciary is about a division of assets between islands. Certainly not about parties.
The second clip that you played was actually from the PAM press conference. And it is important to know that when the issue was first brought up, as we heard, it was not CBI. It was nobody is supposed to be the leader for more than 2 terms.
Mm-hmm.
We're 3 years away from an election. Nobody. And the other issue is, as much as we speak about the Charleston Accord as the origin point, I have the Charleston Accord in front of me, and there is nothing in the Charleston Accord which speaks to the fact that no leader is going to lead for more than 2 terms. I have always said that there was a secondary agreement which was signed, which we are not aware of, which neither the PLP nor PAM nor anybody from CCM has brought to us. But it has been consistently stated that the Charlestown Accord elevated Tim to the Prime Ministership, where nothing in here says that should Timothy Harris be successful, that he would indeed be the leader. And we must understand, coalition government is not something that is new to the Federation. There is only one time in the history of St. Christopher and Nevis politics that PAM win enough seats by itself to form a government. One single time. Every other time that Labour has been out of office, it has been due to the fact that there was a coalition government in place.
Correct. Starting from 1980.
We somehow, though, went from what used to happen to we have an agreement which put a man in as the Prime Minister with 1 seat. That never happened in a coalition before, and we don't have the specific agreement where PAM and CCM somehow say, well, Tim, as long as you win, you're gonna be the man. None of us know how to do it. I would have think that at least PAM should have been. I think the Premier would have said that he offered Sean the second time. But I would have think that they would have been the primary candidate. So it was a unique situation from the start. And we can't see nothing in the Charlestown Accord to substantiate and say that this is what elevated. Tim was elevated due to the subservience of PAM and CCM, in my opinion.
He was asked about remedies to fair share. Let's listen to his response.
You asked me some very good questions. Let me deal with the question of CBI. You say, what happens if Nevis doesn't get its fair share? I think that there are various responses which are open to the island of Nevis. There are political responses which are open. When we weren't getting our fair share prior to 2015, we went out and we had a political solution to that problem. We changed the government. So that is a political solution if we get to that stage. It's always a political solution to seek to have the persons in a government that are responsive to the needs not only of some but of all the people of the country. There's also the consideration of legal possibilities to really put this whole issue of revenue sharing before the court. And the court does provide an opportunity to review that as well. There's also dialogue and discussions. And I go back to my Saul moment on the road to Damascus.
He has been talking about this for 10 years, Alan. He's the Premier of Nevis. I would suspect that the last one, the dialogue, is the course that he has been following. Certainly has not made use of the court, even though he says that the court is an option. And he says that he knows the court system very well. 10 years.
Everybody always goes to 113, and I always go to the clause that says between the administration and the government that you could, as he said, take it to the court. We have not. I have been a strong proponent. I have continued to say American states to the federal government all the time. Anytime there is a federation, when there are disputes, legitimate disputes, and so he has raised it as a possibility, and we get no. Because the negotiation route and the political route is not in my mind.
Pico, the way to go for residential, commercial, and industrial wiring, data, security, UPS, and generator installation. When you need electrical work done now, done right, done at an affordable price, contact Finney's Electrical Company. Call or WhatsApp 665-1916 or email pico_1166@yahoo.com. Pico, the way to go.
Lost it for a minute there, Alan. So we took the commercial break, but I lost you at the back end of that. Now, listen. The fair share report has been in the Federation now for, since February, March. The Premier was grumbling and grumbling, and then he came to the people of Nevis and said this.
Collaboration fair share, I'm not sure how I forgot to mention that, but I can report that the federal government has made available the report from the World Bank. That report has now been made available to me, and that report therefore will be made available to the Cabinet in Nevis for their evaluation of it. I was asked by the Honorable Prime Minister if I could hold on any public comments about it for now, because they're still going through their own evaluation on St. Kitts, and we have to do our evaluation here on Nevis.
but I can state that the report is now in our hands. Remember the last time I said that the report had come, but we had not yet seen it. So the report is now in our hands, and I certainly have reviewed it, and my colleagues will have an opportunity to review it at the cabinet level here in Nevis as well. So I'm hopeful that as we go forward, I'll be able to come back and report in a more full scale.
Hold a moment, Alan. The fair share report was so important. It came to the Federation. Drew held on to it for some time before he shared it with the Premier, finally shared it with the Premier, and we, the people of Nevis, thought, hey, this is so important that they're going to deal with it in a hurry. And then we got this.
The fair share report, as I confirmed, I now have the report. It has been shared with the Cabinet, but we have not yet discussed it in large measure because I would have traveled, last week, would have been away last week. And prior to that, my colleague, the Honorable Spencer Brand, had been away. He had taken a bit of a personal break. I think he went to celebrate his 25th anniversary of his wedding, which I think was a useful and important reason for him to be off for a few days. So we are hopeful that we will be able to consider that this week, and then thereafter we'll be able to engage with the federal government on it. But we do have the report, and members, it has been shared with members.
Still hold a minute, Alan. Let me play this. That is one excuse so far. Let me play this.
The reason I'm using the language of very soon rather than giving you a date is because our cabinet has to do its final deliberations and determination. I can tell you that the Honorable Prime Minister have spoken as recently as last week via WhatsApp, and we are due to meet to advance that discussion as well. And so we hope that we will have something in short order. I think we need to get through Music Fest and maybe Mango Fest, and then we get down now to talk about what we're doing in terms of this fair share issue. But the issue continues to be a live issue, and we expect that we'll be able to come back in short order and let you and the press, the public, know what's happening.
So this was so important, and then you got it, and then Bran went off to celebrate his 25th anniversary of his marriage. And then you had Music Fest and Mango Fest. It wasn't so important after all, was it?
I want to let you know as well, this is not really a cabinet issue for me, you know. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have a say. I'm saying that the fair share report really and truly, the most important people that need to have this is the Ministry of Finance and those senior persons in there. The Ministry of Finance, in my mind, would then go through it, and they would make a report. You would actually get a report, and the report, and they would kind of give it to now the cabinet, for the cabinet to consider this. I feel like that would be the appropriate circumstance. The next thing I want to do is, Mr. Brand, the next time you have important government business and you have to go away, here's what you do, Mr. Brand. You say, honey, I pay for a massage for you. Banner. You know what I mean? You make up whatever excuse, and you let her go and she have a wonderful massage. She lay down and get rubbed down and all these kind of things. And you speak to the Premier. I do not understand how come the Premier could speak to the Prime Minister via WhatsApp but can't speak to Spencer Brand via WhatsApp.
Important point. Because
how much time we need to do this thing, and we got to make up, listen, Spencer, I broke up a government to this. You don't think I would break up a marriage? Spencer, I broke up a whole government with this. For Nevis people. We fighting for Nevis people. Me not tell you can't go, Spencer, but my God. Just make a little time. Labby got a little WhatsApp thing. Give me a couple notes on what you think. And furthermore, as you would have said, first of all, he get it. And I guess it was inter-primary time. So he couldn't do nothing about that. After that, he had to travel. And then you got Mango Fest. Mango Fest should never be used. Music Fest should never be used as an excuse as to why we can't function as a government. On the contrary, music fest supposed to be used. You're down there and you're liming all day. You say, Mr. Agent, Mr. Premier, why we don't have lunch together tomorrow? The Premier was in Singits all weekend. You're telling me that you don't use this as a networking opportunity? You just really and truly, you think that this thing is about going to shows? That's not the idea. Music fest is supposed to be a thing where, whether it's commercial people, our government entities, you're supposed to go down there. I would think that owners of businesses, y'all supposed to be lining up saying, man, Mr. Premier, I need a word with you. Mr. Prime Minister, I need a word with you. And the Premier is supposed to be doing it also with members of the Singits and Nevis cabinet. He's supposed to be asking the other ministers, hey man, come down. Since all of us gonna be in this place, this is an opportunity. We're not gonna just be down here. Alignment. We're gonna do some business too. Because that's what we do. That's why we just get to pay. That's my opinion.
We're going to be taking your calls in 5 minutes' time. But before that, as soon as we'll play the commercial, as soon as we come back from the commercial break, we'll take your calls. We're going to do a little overtime tonight, so don't worry. Alan, now here is my challenge. The Premier received the Fiduciary report. Bran was absent and Bran could not Zoom in or Teams meeting in, nothing. So they could not have a meeting because Bran was absent. And then Bran having become present once more, you had Music Festival, you had Mango Fest, you had Culturama. But the Premier did make a statement that this Fiduciary thing was so easy to work out, since they already have a report from a reputable international organization. I just want you to recall who the Premier said could work out Fiduciary, and then let us wonder why it has taken so long for them to work it out. Listen this.
I did not need the World Bank. In fact, I think I recall saying a kindergarten student could look at the CBI money and say, take out the expense and divide the rest. That didn't need no World Bank. Now I'm hearing that the World Bank is come now to do an overall assessment of the financial situation between the two islands, and I have decided to keep my powder dry. I'm going to wait and see what it is the Prime Minister comes up with. It is something that we've talked about in our very first meeting when he became Prime Minister. It is now 2.5 years after he's Prime Minister. We have still not yet seen anything, but hope springs eternal. And
So the Premier wants us to believe that people 4 and 5 years old could work out the Fiduciary arrangement, but a set of highly paid people sitting around the cabinet table in government in Nevis can't work it out. It don't make sense.
I would also add that even though we have not played the audio, it is in contradistinction to other comments he has made where he has said he is not certain of what the CBI money is. One of the reasons why a six farmer, whoever he said, cannot do the work is he established that this is not just about determining the proportions. You know? He has questioned the validity of budget reports and all these type of things. So this is also to determine, according to him, because he has made me question whether I could believe in budgets. He has consistently said that it could be more. I heard him at one point say, "I'm confident in the numbers," and then still at the same in the same breath say, "But it could be more." So you cannot establish that this thing is so simple that people who 4 and 5 could do it, but still at the same time continue to say you do not trust the numbers. Continue to say that you have not been consulted by SK with regards to the report. All of those can be true at the same time. Is either we do have the numbers and we don't like how it is being split up, or we can't find the numbers, so we have no idea, in which case it's not so easy. In which case That's why we need people in the authority. And in which case, this also ties back to the Public Accounts Committee, because, Mr. Premier, if you are unsatisfied with numbers from CBI, you could call in the auditor. You could call in people from CBI and ask them, hey, man, what these numbers be? These are verified. How you verify them? This is within the ability of the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, and this is why it is important that you not just be vaguely interested in what the Public Accounts Committee could do for you, but you become acutely interested and try to actually push this thing in a manner that could help you to get the fair share. Again, your extra work, but Mr. Premier, you're going to get extra benefits too.
Definitely. And his statement that he is unsure of the figures used in the budget hold no water. Because if there was a functioning Public Accounts Committee, they have the right to subpoena witnesses. They could, listen, it's so much that they could do. We're going to take the ads, and then we're going to take your calls. Soon as the ad finished playing, we will take your calls for a couple of minutes, because Alan, I want your views on the SSZ. So we're not going to leave tonight before we touch that. But let's do the ads and come back, and then we are going to talk about that.
Pico, the way to go for residential, commercial, and industrial wiring, data, security, UPS and generator installation. When you need electrical work done now, done right, done at an affordable price, contact Pico's Electrical Company. Call or WhatsApp 665-1916 or email pico_1166@yahoo.com. Pico, the way to go.
Do you know what you're drinking? If you are drinking plastic bottled water, chances are you're consuming plastic contaminants, BPA, and other hormone-disrupting chemicals you cannot see with your naked eye. Those empty plastic bottles take up to 450 years to decompose. In the meantime, plastic bottles are polluting the environment. They are dangerous to the planet and our health. The safer solution is to acquire your own Kangen alkaline water filtration system, and you'll never have to buy toxic bottled water again. Help save the planet and drink clean water for less than the price you'll pay for acid plastic bottled water over the next few years. The Kangen technology is the world's most popular, most acquired water immunizer. For more information, you can call or WhatsApp us on 917-207-1307. That's 917-207-1307. Change your water, change your life.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to Tell Me. Alan, we have had a tremendous amount of interest in both St. Kitts and Nevis. As a matter of fact, there is a march tomorrow in St. Kitts. In Nevis, there was a rally 2 Fridays ago talking about this special zone that they are having here in Nevis, where the Premier, by his own admission, said that they're looking to have at least 2,000 acres of land, 3 square miles minimum.
It's 2,400 now.
2,400 acres of land. You're talking about 3 square miles, and you're also talking about bringing in an additional 7,000 to 10,000 persons. Now, what is troubling for a lot of people, not just in numbers, but what is being afforded to these people who want to have their own zone, their own area where they can be exclusive. Here is the problem. There is supposed to be an oversight committee, may have an oversight committee. And the Premier apparently was not inclined to do that, because if he had been willing to do so, he would have done so from the beginning. What happened earlier today is that the Premier, our Premier Mark Brantley, well, last night, apparently he went on his show and indicated that the opposition would be asked to nominate a person. And the letter in terms of the oversight body which I have seen, says that pursuant to Section 9 of the Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Act 2025, the Act, in brackets, I invite you to nominate an agreed individual of your choice as the nominee from the opposition in the Nevis Island Assembly to sit on the oversight body contemplated by Section 9 of the Act for the purpose of monitoring zone developer compliance with the terms of any development agreement. Please note that your nominee should be an individual suitably qualified in engineering, finance, the environment, sustainability, construction, project management, the law, or architecture. I would appreciate your urgent response. Now, I have a couple of challenges with this as we delve into this. One, who will receive the project proposals? Not this committee. Secondly, Mark Brantley is playing clever in that he's more than likely sent the same letter to both members of the opposition and asking them to have an agreed nominee. Both of them have to agree on the nominee. Remember that that is the way in which Mark Brantley and his cabinet wrote the law with respect to the Integrity Commission, that both members of the opposition had to agree. But in that case, if they did not agree, it fell back to the Premier to appoint somebody. And no secret that the two did not agree. And so Mark Brantley appointed the entire Integrity Commission, all the members of the commission, because he took back the appointment since both of them couldn't agree. And he said, listen, this is going to be the third person, who just happened to be the person who was instrumental in the formation of the company, which we call South Nevis. Let me call it South Nevis. I suspect that if the two members of the opposition in Nevis can't agree on a nominee, Mark Brantley will do what he did in the past and appoint that person. But here is the trick. I am reliably informed that there is already a de facto committee which has been put in place with a former Minister of Government as the chairperson. And that is just because of the pressure being put on the government and Mark as Premier in particular, why they are now making this public. And there was a great rush last night to solve the letter on the members of the opposition. I think Janice Daniel Hodge, doctor, got hers in Parliament today. But you see the kind of crap letter that it is saying if both of you can't agree, both of you must agree on the one person. That is not likely to happen, Alan.
No, that is unlikely to happen, and I don't know why it couldn't have been more than one person.
Correct.
When I'm speaking about this special zone, what I would like people to understand is it's unique from the others, especially in the supervisory board. The supervisory board in the St. Kitts and Nevis legislation is in the miscellaneous part of the legislation. It is in the very last section. There is independent oversight bodies and the application to Nevis. When you look at any other legislation that the government say is equivalent to this, there is much more emphasis with regards to the supervisory bodies, their role, and what could be done. So I even think that it is a mistake to go ahead and farm this without doing the relevant regulations. For example, How many persons should be on the supervisory board? What are the express functions? Section 9 of the Act only says that the Prime Minister or Premier could establish an oversight board to receive and review applications. What other functions, what other powers does this board have? And these are the issues that I have with this legislation. If you read the Hawks-Bill Act, the Hawks-Bill Agreement for Bahamas, if you read the one for Jamaica, if you read the one for the Cayman Islands, as I said, the oversight and regulatory aspects, and regulation is one of the things that is a key in how successful ultimately a special zone is going to be. There is much more thought and care put into how this thing would be supervised and as I said, the powers of these people. The Premier is rushing to set up a supervisory board, and we don't know what powers they're going to have. We don't know how many people they're going to be comprised of. I think from the letter it says some of the background, but I would also think that he would have to follow those same criteria. So I do not expect to see anybody on that particular board who is not specialized in some form. I think whether it's you have something in engineering, finance, those type of other areas. So that's my major issue with this oversight thing. The section on oversight is the least, and also when you do not have clear guidelines as to what is going to happen to oversight, this is where you could get into abuse. Also to point out, our legislation, which is 8 pages, there has been none of the legislation before that is as short as ours. All of them took a lot more time. The Bahamas one was from 1955. The Bahamas one spells out, listen, you got 3 years, you got to dredge 200 feet down, and you got to be 30 feet wide. On top of that, you got to put in a wharf. And the wharf got to be 600 feet, it got to be 10 feet wide. Very specific. They tell you where you're going to get concessions on, and ours also goes on to tell you where you get concessions. But they also tell you, if you bring in something that is duty-free, you have to sign a bond. If we find out that you're moving these things are bringing them in for things that are not to do with the project, meaning that you're misusing it, you will agree that the goods could be forfeited and you would be fined, and in addition to that, you're going to have to pay twice the regular duty that you would have had to pay. So there are our legislation seems to me to be only for the investors. I do not see the safeguards to say, well, okay, if you do not fall within this category, if you abuse us, how are we going to go in and enforce the legislation? It only says how the investors are going to get you, not how we are going to police it.
Very investor friendly.
Indeed. And one of the questions too, because I also listened to a podcast that the Premier did with an Indian gentleman, and he was asked the question, well, how are you going to police this understanding that people have slapped the term sustainable or green and things before and being abused? And I didn't get a satisfactory answer about that. Section 9 is not enough for us to effectively police this. I have not heard the Premier, for example, saying, man, Look out for the regulations. Look out for robust regulations. Once again, the other territories with the regulation, you're talking about 80 pages building upon the 30 or 50 pages that they had initially. So they put a lot of thought into not just creating the zone, but how we're going to police the zone. How are we going to ensure that we don't get abused? That's why they put in stuff to say, well, man, you got 3 years to effectively do what you got to do. Them type of things. So you can do things. They put in things to say, hire locals, train locals. We don't have that in our legislation. It simply seems like it's made up to be investor friendly without any of the enforcement that any of the other legislation have, from what I've seen.
Section 9 is only 4 lines, Alan.
This is what I'm saying. When you go to either the Cayman, the Jamaican, either one, they would establish a committee that would take care of the macro stuff, like the overall. That would be the committee that would accept the applications and that type of thing. The committee would also advise the minister. So where in ours you have people applying to an oversight board, maybe. In Jamaica, no. They have their board, and then they also, on top of that, they have another body, a secretariat that would handle the day-to-day of it all. So it's very structured, and then you still have, in those circumstances, other government officials. You have on the supervisory board, for example, a representative of customs, a representative of the labor department, representative from immigration. So it's supposed to be a very wide thing. I would think you could put a representative in there from the police as well.
Stick up in, Alan. Let's take a phone call. Hi, good evening, caller.
Good evening, Powell and Powell.
How are you tonight?
I'm giving thanks. Mr. Powell, we have to start from the beginning. And you have to start with trust. In July, the Premier did not know anything about the special zone. By the 29th of July, the first reading in the House. And in August, 2 readings one day. Let me tell you something. If you fool me once, shame on you. If you fool me twice, shame on me. This setting up is to try to say whether I gave them the authority and they didn't use it. That is talking points for the Premier. The people came to Sinkits with an agenda. They clearly stated on the page what they're into, what they want, what they expect. I am not expecting the Oversight Committee to be able to do anything much, because when they get the lands and they do what they do over there, I don't know if the government of Nevis then would have the authority, unless they're going to change the whole plans, what I am hearing about. It is not going to work. And I don't think the idea of getting somebody in the committee is genuine coming from the Premier. His record is not good. There is some alternative behind what he's coming up with. I am hoping, I'm not a scholar, but I'm hoping my leader would consider everything before she decides to go ahead with what he's trying to make talking points on. He genuinely don't mean nothing. He really don't. NRP contested the election. NRP won 2 seats. They had a de facto, but he know who is the leader of the party. He know the party won 2 seats. Did he appoint a leader of the opposition? He did not. And it was clear that he could have chosen one individual based on the fact, leader, you led the party into election, your party won 2 seats. You got to be trustworthy. And there's nothing what the Premier now said to anybody as negligent. They should believe him. Because what happened with the special, with what happened with Carlin Lawrence, what happened with Carlin Lawrence is frightening. I am convinced that the Premier should just resign. He and his cabinet should just resign. Because you know what? I believe they're in over the head too, you know. I believe they're in over the head. Because all them lands were they buying up. I don't think nobody come and just start to buy land and start to buy land and start to buy land and not have something in written that, yes, I buy the land because you don't get something out the deal. You don't tell me and buy land and when they don't get the land, you come back and tell me and get something? No. Not so rich people spend the money. Not so rich people spend the money. Let me see how this roll out because I know this could never, ever end good. For me, Florence Finley, the very thought at 7,000 to 10,000 people coming in this little country where we call home to live is upsetting. And let me tell you, when we hear 7 or 10, let us look to 10 to 15, right? Can remember who said it. Good night and goodbye.
Thank you very much, caller. Alan, the 7 to 10,000 persons who the Premier has said he's looking to have, the zone developers are looking to have in that area. First of all, the Premier, I'm wondering who he's representing because when he speaks, he seems to speak for the developers rather than speaking for the people of Nevis. But 7 to 10,000 people is a lot of people, Alan.
Is another Nevis.
Is another Nevis, yes?
Another issue, another big issue that I see on the horizon. The Premier has referred the public to destiny.com, and I also see that Mr. Eric Evelyn has reposted screenshots of the destiny.com website onto his Facebook page. Ladies and gentlemen, destiny is a big problem. Mr. Premier, do not think that you should be attaching yourself to Destiny, and the reason why, I'm on Destiny.com right now. There is no menu. There is no about us. There is no contact. There is nothing to say, well, and one of the criteria one of the objectives of the SSZ is to attract persons who are in the space of developing SSZs. There is nothing on the website to say, well, we have done it in Nicaragua, we did one in Panama, we did one in Costa Rica. There is none of that information available. All of it is things that are lock and step with what the Premier has said. And what Destiny brings: jobs, tourism growth, branded hotels, sustainable investment. Very vague, very general things. I'm not saying Destiny.com and the persons who are in charge of Destiny.com are scammers. But ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted to look at a prototype scam website, go to Destiny.com right now. There is no information. This is not a built-out website. And the reason why this is shocking, these are persons who I have calculated the price for 2,000 acres. And for 2,000 acres, these people, according to what I got, are willing to spend 479 million Eastern Caribbean dollars and can't get enough or get a website organized. Seems strange to me. If you add on another 400 acres, we're talking about these people are willing to spend $500 million Eastern Caribbean dollars and can't put up on a website which, as I said, would say about us, other projects we have done. Give us something more. We can't even get a picture. Normally, when the Premier does come with something, we just get a model who say, well, this is how we gonna look. Not even that. See, and once again, I'm not saying that they're scamish, but this has all of the characteristics of something that would be scamish. I would not have a website, a t-shirt from Destiny. If they had Destiny t-shirt, if they had a mug, I would not feel good either in a mug guy. There is no information on this side.
Stick up in, Alan. Let's take another call. Hi, good evening, caller.
Yeah, good evening to Powell Squared or Powell Overload. Great hearing you guys. Carlisle and
Alan.
Yeah, Alan. I want to lend my voice to this vexing issue. Now, an article was sent to me which was dated September 25th, 2017, and it involved an interview by Roger Ver and his plan to start a new libertarian country. Of course, Nevis was not mentioned, but now we know Nevis might be in the mix here. And there are a number of things that jump out at me in this article. Now, the article starts, Roger Ver, imagine a country where you could live free without a central government telling you who to be, what to do, and how to act. And Roger Ver is inviting people to join him on a ground level in plans to create a libertarian utopia. Now, what's interesting about this entire article is that, as Alan just pointed out, just based on the website, there are a number of red flags, red lights blinking loudly at Nivisians and Kittians, and we need to wake up and call this for what it is. This has fraud written all over it. Okay? Fraud written all over it. Carlisle, let me just point to you quickly a couple of things that jump out at me. The governance and legal ambiguity. There's no central authority. Okay? And one has to ask, well, how will disputes be resolved, crimes prosecuted, or rights protected? Okay? Then he talks about private institutions as rule makers. So you're delegating all governance to private entities, and you risk creating monopolies and oligarchies with little accountability. So who regulates the regulators? Then he makes assumption of negotiating with governments to purchase sovereign land. But sovereignty isn't something a government can simply sell. As far as I know, it's a legal status that's recognized by international law. Alan can correct me on that. He has a legal mind, he's a lawyer and all of that. So, and the other lawyers can correct me on that. But that is what I know when it comes to sovereignty. So the idea that a country would be allowed, a libertarian enclave, to operate with full autonomy is highly questionable. Okay? Then there's this vagueness about the financial transparency and the risk. Anonymous investors. He admits in that article that most of the backers are undisclosed. So this lack of transparency to me raises serious concern about the source of funds, potential money laundering, and other hidden agendas. Then he speaks about and mentions the initial coin offering being blocked by regulators. Well, who are the regulators that block this? That's a red flag. And usually ICOs, initial coin offerings, are usually fraught with scams and regularity violations and all kind of vulnerabilities. Then he speaks about speculative land auctioning, the plan to auction land to developers before infrastructure is in place. That could lead to uneven development or abandonment if the project failed, Carlisle. And the idea, he touts this idea that governments are eager to sell land for sovereign libertarian experiment. I mean, to create this enclave, that to me is so dubious. Most governments that I know, maybe St. Kitts and Nevis government is an exception, but most governments I know are bound by some constitutional or territorial laws that would prevent such transaction. And then, of course, there's the threat of the potential neo-colonialism happening to us. And then no taxes, no public services. Well, how are you going to pay for the healthcare and the education and the infrastructure? I mean, these are serious questions and serious concerns I have. And so they're setting up a society that they're supposed to monitor themselves, police themselves, and giving the impression that there's going to be some level of cohesion and everybody will be in unison and moral alignment. You know, this is impractical. So what happens when someone refuses to comply? These people, the libertarians, most of them are white. We don't have to look too far to what happened in South Africa, what happened previously in Burkina Faso, the Congo, and other places. We have real examples of what can happen when we have these people with these fancy ideas who really, their intention is to exploit and extract. These people are not like us. They're not for us. And I know I can't tell Nivisions who to sell their lands to, but I would encourage Nivisions, hold on to what you have. Don't be bought for just 30 pieces of silver for the short run. Think long term. And the other thing to Carlisle, I'll end on this. Some people might have entered contracts with these developers, land placed in escrow, a percentage of the land, the value of the land placed in escrow. And not too many people are clear on the intentions of the developers. So there's some misrepresentation here, withholding of information from the other party. I think people may have a legal case here if they want to exit these contracts, because it is not fair, it is not transparent. As I see it, I have not seen a written contract, but I am getting that kind of feeling that there's something amiss here with all of this. And this to me smells like fraud all over. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Carla. Listen, I want people to understand that I love development, but I want the developments that come to Nevis to be properly discussed, people given full information, and not, as in this case, starting out on a lie. Because Carlin Lawrence was told, hey, listen, those are rumors. Within days, those rumors had formed. They had morphed into something totally different. Alan, I'm going to play something from Barbados, where the government of Barbados went into the House and passed a piece of legislation. The people of Barbados didn't take kindly to it and started calling in and protesting. And this is what Mayor Motley came to the nation and said.
The bill, which was passed in the House of Assembly last week, carried an exception clause, a route by which an interception could be treated as lawful without a judge's warrant in specified circumstances. But after a thorough weekend review and after advice from the Attorney General, with input from the relevant authorities and stakeholders, and being mindful of public concern, we are satisfied that this exception ought not to be proclaimed and in fact should be repealed. We will therefore act accordingly by removing this clause in the Senate and sending the same back to the House of Assembly for concurrence. My friends, this government has the humility to listen and always the courage to correct. I promised you that on May 27th, 2018, and we will hold fast to that. We will keep refining the law where necessary so that it makes sense to the people it is required to protect.
Barbados, they had an exception clause and the government decided, hey, listen, no, we don't want that. So we're going to take it out. In Nevis, you have some clauses which people don't like. But the federal government, through the Prime Minister, Drew, who says he's keeping out of Nevis business, and the Attorney General, who is saying much the same, and the Premier, they're digging in. They're saying 2,400 acres, and that is what we want to establish over here, 7,000 to 10,000 people. The Attorney General said that the Premier has a proposal. The Premier says that he has a proposal. People of Nevis have no idea what's in that proposal. But they're digging in. Any chance that they might take a way out, Alan, and do some corrections?
I will always say that is a possibility. I wanted to kind of address something that the caller before had stated. This is from a study of free zones. So he says international institutions and researchers have long been looking at the best practices and conditions of governance of free zones. The governance structure covers four main functions: the state, the regulation, the development, and the operation. The state grants the land and the specific conditions of operation of the zone. The regulation covers the management of this grant, and often the regulator is a state agency. We are opting in this case to say that they could regulate themselves. So the regulator, according to our act, is gonna be the entity itself. Now, he said the development is a function of creating the buildings, while the operation is a function of the use of these buildings. Sometimes a developer is also a regulator, but this creates situations in which a private function interferes with a public good function, potentially leading to prevarication. Developers, however, can be operators in the sense that they operate warehousing and logistic services for others. Operators can be industries managing the developed logistics facility or companies. Best practice recommends that an operator can never be a regulator. Best practice dictates that an operator should never be a regulator. If we are gonna ask for a change, I think that one of the changes should be that the NIA or the federal government is the one who is in charge of creating the laws. I am not concerned about this thing where they say that you have to bring it to the government and then the government gonna pass it for you. I would prefer discuss with the government, negotiate with the government, let the government amend the act accordingly. But best practice indicate that whoever it is gonna be operating Destiny should not have the capacity to regulate themselves at the same time. It is going to cause confusion, whether it's Mr. Premier or Mr. Prime Minister. That there is not a good idea.
I tell you what is also not a good idea, Alan. In the original document that was issued, there was under development agreement and what it may contain, where necessary, leasing of adjacent seabed, provided that no such lease shall have an initial term in excess of 99 years. I mean, Four Seasons didn't ask for this. They have been compared with the SSZ here in Nevis. Why would we want to lease the adjacent seabed out to 12 miles to any entity for 99 years? It just don't make sense to me. And that is one of the areas that should not even have been contemplated.
I would expect that this is going to be a free port. I would expect that there has to be something in the plans for some creation of a marina over there. I think I heard the Premier's justification for the leasing of the seabed as because they are going to be doing something in the seabed. And the only something I could think about is a port over there. So I would imagine that this is going to develop. And you know what? I'm kind of uncertain. My kind of other fundamental issue with this SSZ is that the Premier he justified it. He justified his support by saying that he has been asking for diversification and he feel like this will bring diversification. However, this is not economic. The Freeport in Jamaica, for example, they just built a pile of warehouses over in Caymanas. It is for producing, manufacturing. The one in the Cayman Islands, they have one for technology. They have one for trading in cryptocurrency and other derivatives. And then I think that they have another one. The one in Bahamas, once again, that is for trading. So that's why they're telling you about build a wharf and these type of things. But they also tell them you have to make use of the limestone in the area. You have to make use of the timber in the area. Our SSZ feels more like what I have been reading about in Indonesia or in Honduras, where they are doing tourism SSZs. So the idea is just, as the Premier has been saying, Labby put 3-4 seasons in there. And this is my fundamental issue. There is no versatility in doing 3 more 4 seasons. No? There would have been versatility if you had told me, well, we're trying to do technology. If we're trying to do trading in cryptocurrency or other derivatives, then there is some versatility. But 3 more 4 seasons simply mean that if a hurricane pass, any establishment that is disturbed, I'll work in the hospitality industry are gone further down. So the reason why I think that there has to be some kind of report component to this is because I don't see the versatility unless there is some kind of trade attached to this. Otherwise, this is going to be a tourism. This is a tourism zone.
Well, that is how it has been defined, essentially. But I wanted to point you to something here. Let me pull it back up on my phone. Destiny. And this was posted in March of 2024. The world's first special sustainable zone. And they're talking about South Nevis. You try to explain to me and get me to understand, how is it that our legislation was just passed quite recently, last August, gazetted in August, but a year and 5 months ago, Destiny knew, and the Premier did not know that they were going to have a special sustainable zone in Nevis. The Premier didn't know. He told Colin his rumors, but Destiny were advertising this a year and 5 months ago. It doesn't add up.
Well, that's why there is some audio of the premier from February of this year, and he would have been speaking, and he said, "Man, the investors are coming in, and shortly, I'm going to tell y'all about a major piece of investment." When I listen back to this clip, the only major piece of investment that we have heard about is this SSZ.
Hold a minute. Stick up in. Let's get in that.
Confidence lies. So the investments are coming. I also intend, Ms. Hewlett, to have some very major announcements to make. But I think those who know me know that I don't announce until I have something on the dotted line. But I can tell you that we are in the throes of negotiating some very significant, large-scale investments into the island of Nevis, and we will come to the public in due course with the.
In February.
In February, and asked by Carlin about this in July. Now, even if there was nothing official, this and the premier would have to correct me. He would have to tell me, man, about these major things that he was negotiating. Because he said we soon come into them. The only one that I could recall is the SSZ. That's the only thing I got in my mind on. And he even had begun by then to say, well, I don't have anything official yet. Is not on the dotted line. But certainly, negotiations had begun as early as that time.
Stick up in. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Carlisle.
How are you?
I'm cool. Good evening, son. There's something, a concern I have here. I don't know. I'm trying to wonder if this is a kind of trap that I hope that we don't put ourselves in. Now, we are talking that they should repeal the bill that was passed. We were saying on this side that we think that the bill should be repealed. But here is now they're coming to say that, look, we're going to give you a chance to choose somebody for the loan. If we're going to appeal, if you're going to repeal the bill, what you say going down the road to say you're going to select something? To my opinion, it looks like it's something they want to because to me, it doesn't seem like you're going to want to have the two. You either want to have the repeal, or you want to go along with them with what they're doing. I mean, this is the way I look at it. I might be wrong, but this is the way I look at it. So it's something that I think we need to look into and forget all about this choose somebody from the opposition. I think we should hold our guns with what we are doing. We decide, look, we're going to continue to protest until the bill is repealed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm not necessarily saying that the bill should be repealed. I am pointing out the issues that I have. The lack of clear powers of the Oversight Committee. The fact that I don't know if the Oversight Committee is supposed to deal with the macro objectives and who is supposed to deal with the day-to-day. And also just having it go according to best practices, like the thing that I just said, where the developers potentially would also be the regulators. So I am simply pointing out the deficiencies that I see, and I would like to see a much more fleshed out version of the law contained in the regulations, something that addresses the many issues that I see with the first legislation. Another thing I would say is, in the same way how I am critical of the developers' destiny for their website, I do not feel like the government should have passed this legislation without having a website dedicated to this. Cayman Islands have one, Jamaica got one. when you are looking for the type of international and domestic investment, you have to have something there that is outlining the ways how you could get involved in this. So it is also an issue for the government in not having a YouTube page and different social media and a website to outline some of the guidelines and something, reaching out to people to find out what their ideas are.
I got you. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Carla, and your guests.
How are you tonight?
Good night, Nevis and St. Kitts. Carla, it seems to me like we're getting some damage control from the government, especially here in St. Kitts. You know, because I was speaking to one the craft for the bill and asking why you allow that Mr. Man over there to craft bill in the federal office. And so I said, what? This thing ain't gonna go so, you know, because we ain't gonna back now, eh? So if you're thinking to come with town hall meeting now, you're making a sad mistake. Very sad mistake. The damage has been done. And I think your office in jeopardy. I want to say to St. Kitts and Nevis tomorrow to go out to the Jamaica March and show how serious we be about these vagabonds playing around with patrimony, land. You understand? St. Kitts and Nevis must stand up and go and show that young man some support to be so brave, because they're coming at him, eh? They put me in the mine in 1996 when I rallied with a man to get full hole at St. Kitts. And the fire 17 hours from up the dock. Denzel Douglas did that. Fire 17 man. All because they support the Labour Party in 95. So we gotta stand up, because if Terrence Joe and the vagabond in Nevis get away with that, nobody knows the next election what's gonna happen. They're gonna behave like Donald Trump or even worse. And maybe show you weapons too, like what you're seeing in Ukraine. Have a good night, Carla, and keep the good work going. You're doing well.
Have a very good night, caller. Thank you very much for calling. Alan, you referred earlier to an interview that was done with somebody of Indian descent. And the question that was posed to the Premier was, how will you enforce the rules? Let's listen to that.
One of the questions here were, strict environmental and social standards look good on paper, but enforcement is often where things fall short. How will your administration ensure those rules have real teeth against powerful developers? And I think that probably speaks more in line with a couple of the CBI things that have taken place right the way across the Caribbean.
Right. So I think it's an excellent question, and I'm going to be blunt with you. Part of our problem in small island states is capacity. You know, I joke with my friends all the time, and I say that sometimes if you need a particular doctor, there may actually be only one person in the entire country who has that expertise, because we're so small. And so oftentimes we have to rely on expertise from outside and to bring people in. You know, an environmental czar, for example, somebody who's going to come in and assist us. So we're very open to that. I think, however, that every developmental sort of thrust starts with the idea. So you have to first have the idea, then you fashion the framework. And then I think what this question is talking about now is, how do you monitor and how do you enforce? And I think that comes down to getting the right people, having the right framework, getting the right people, and showing the level of seriousness. And I think that seriousness comes from political will. When we engage with developers, as you say, quite powerful developers, people who are very well financed, sometimes having checkbooks, I would say, and profit and loss statements that are much bigger than the country that they're coming to invest in. So we understand that. I mean, when you look at major companies, say a company like Microsoft, I mean, their bottom line is much bigger than most countries in the world. So the reality is that we understand the power dynamic, but it really comes back to political will. And we know that for an island our size, sustainability is critical. Absent sustainability, we will simply disappear. And so this is not just a fireside chat. This is not just an armchair discussion. This for us is our survival. We must be sustainable. We must do more in terms of food security. We must ensure that we wean ourselves off the dependence on fossil fuels for energy. We must have water security, whether through desalination or other mechanisms. But the reality is that we are on the front line of that. There are other countries which perhaps can endure if some part of their country was to become unsustainable, but we simply don't have that luxury.
Alan, many years ago, I taught for English composition on a mark of 10, he would have had 1 for the effort. And he would have lost 9 marks for not answering the question. Because he didn't. How do you enforce the rules? And he talk all kind of things but refuse to answer. How? Do you have the competence to get people to enforce the rule? Sorry. 1 out of 10.
The first part get me upset, because why would you be joking? And he said, I joke with my colleagues and other people all the time about sometime if you're sick, you might only got 1 doctor. Why would... And you see, this is something why NRP said this is a major problem. But the premier is allowed to joke and say, but you got one of them kind of doctor. That can't, Mr. Premier. And it goes into another thing. You're not a funny guy. Don't stop running the jokes on them. Let me just deal with business. Let me just get down to the business. And then he came back to, we heard time and time again the political will. If we are to depend on the political will of Mark Brantley, just look at the Public Accounts Committee. The political, when it comes to political will, and also he like to use God willing. God never willing when it come to Mark Brantley. God never been willing when it come to Mark Brantley. He always say God willing next time I'm gonna give you an update. And when he come back, the update is the same update where he gave you last time. So we do not want to depend on just these statements. And I want to go back to the supervisory committee. This is something that, whether or not, what would have given me great comfort, I heard the Premier speak about this, and he said the legislation said that it's optional whether you have the committee. I would have loved if the Premier had said, regardless if they say it's optional or not, we are going to have the committee, and the committee is going to be functioning all year round. The commitment to this zone and to not being abused by the principals, the developers of this zone, is going to require that these persons are in place all year round. The legislation should mimic other legislation which would require persons in the zone, officials from the NIA, to be able to go into these businesses and to make sure that these businesses are in compliance with the act. These are the things that we need to ensure that we're not just saying, well, hey, this is a sustainable development. Any of the guideposts, I think you're supposed to be 70% from renewable energy. All of these things have to be, you constantly got to go in there. If they say that they need X amount of tiles for a building which is duty-free concession, we got to send people over there. I think people don't understand, just because we say you don't have to pay custom duty. That no mean that you things and them ain't gonna come in through customs, you know. We are gonna look to see everything where you got in there. Some of the things then you're gonna bring in are not gonna attract duty-free concession. You can't just bring in a chocolate, for example, and get duty-free concession. The things that are the things that are supposed to attract duty-free concession are the things that are supposed to help to build the actual development. So there is not gonna there can't be any just free reign over there. When you look at the one in Bahamas, they go so far as to tell you that not only will there be officials in there from the government, you know, you got to provide the office space and the living space for them.
Correct.
You got to provide teachers. You got to provide schools. All of this is spelled out in the legislation. This is not something where we come behind and even when they come and they tell you hospital, they tell you and you have to have this amount of beds and all this type of thing. So when I'm saying I want this to be built out, I don't want the Premier and the Prime Minister to just refer to the other islands and tell me, man, our thing gonna be just like them, except sustainable. I want it to have the teeth that those others have. And I also want it to be the case because when I read commentary, they still speak about the issues that these different legislation face. What we are supposed to do is we're supposed to stand on the shoulders of these past legislators. We're supposed to study what has happened in Jamaica, what has happened in the Cayman, what has happened in Bahamas, see the issues that they have faced, see the successes that they have, and we're supposed to say, okay, we got a framework, and we stand up on them shoulder so that we continue to build accordingly. Not that we come and we put something together on 9 pages. There is no aspect of any legislation outside you might find the part with the fees that would be 8 pages. That only got anything to do with the fees. But there is no legislation that come about and does not have teeth like this. And not only that, telling you submit it to the cabinet and supervisory committee, we're going to put that down in the miscellaneous section. And we're not really going to tell you about what functions and power they got. We're not going to set up nobody to deal with the day-to-day running of this thing. We are going to create another Nevis. We are going to let them regulate themselves. And that can be that. And I don't feel like that is sufficient. That's my issue.
And I accept that. Let me take you to section 5D. Because, and I do that because I want people to understand that the Premier is trying to narrow down the discussion on this whole thing and to suggest that the NRP in Nevis is telling people not to sell their land. And then both him and Eric are talking about the barren nature of the land and it been there for 100 years and nothing happening and nothing gonna happen if we don't kneel down on our knees and welcome this new development to the south of Nevis. Now, D says that the zone developer shall provide evidence of ownership or lease of or of an agreement to purchase or lease the real property comprising the area as of the time of entering the development agreement. If the Premier has a proposal on his desk, and he said it, not us, does it suggest, Alan, that they already have a lease or leases or have purchase agreements on the required 2,400 acres?
Well, any zone that is so declared would have to have this, because this is in the section that they say conditions precedent.
Mm-hmm.
So before we can even sign an agreement, all of those things in 51B, 51A and B, all of those things need to be in place. These are things that are within the Premier's possession at this particular time, and he should be able to speak to us generally. And I also want to say, I think that the Premier is going to attempt to say that some of these matters are confidential, and we need to understand. I am not looking for the specifics of how this thing is going to work. But in general, the things that are required as conditions precedent, these are things that the Premier should know of generally and be able to say. He's very good at speaking to us in a vague manner. So he just got to come on and be himself. But all of these things here, yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the SS? We still have a lot that we haven't touched on the SSZ. Anything else in particular you want to look at? Because we know at 10:30.
No, I think I've been consistent. This act is not good enough. In addressing something that Akala said earlier with regards to the process of how these things are debated, I think that the government should also take note of what is taking place. And the government should also be honest in how debates are structured. When the bill was read the first time, even though that the Premier said we had the opportunity to hear about it, they only read the title, you know, and the general objectives. This is not enough information for somebody to understand. When they come back and read it the second and the third time, that's it. But that is the first time we would have heard like the actual mechanics of the bill. And even things that were in the bill were later removed.
Correct.
Before, such as I think it was supposed to be 500 acres minimum.
And 750.
Yes, and by the way, as I mentioned that, I'm going to call it now. I think that the airport is going to apply to be a special zone. I think that the reason why so much land has been brought up, I could envision a future where the airport is a special sustainable zone. I could see it. I think it's going to happen. But with regards to how things are debated, it is not enough to say, well, you could tune into Parliament and hear. When a bill is read the first time, because I tried to get the bill before they went in Parliament the second time, and there was, you couldn't even get it after they went in there. It was available maybe like a week after they actually passed it. That's when I go actually see it. So I feel like we need to improve how we participate and consult with the public in general before we pass laws.
Okay, they now said that they are going to have town hall meetings, but certainly the horse has already bolted.
We will see. We will now see. As I have said, there are a number of conditions precedent. It would be good if persons could go to the meetings equipped to ask the Premier questions of things that he should know. So from the fact that he has said that a proposal is before him, there are criteria of things that have to be in the proposal. what need to happen now is we need to speak about what are the things in that proposal that the Premier is willing to speak to, and what are his thoughts on the deficiencies in the act, if he sees any. If the Premier says that the act is perfect, major red flag. That's a bigger red flag than the Destiny webpage. And he can't just simply say that it is not perfect. I have spoken of about 3 different things. Cause he like to say that nobody does provide solution. They only blindly. I pick out 3 things and I say the ways that I could see them improving, so that it is more in line with best practices. So I would like for the Premier to go in depth. If you have a problem, this is the problem, and how he could see it improving, so that the people of Nevis could benefit from the SSZ overall.
Okay, let's do our last commercial break, and then we can do another 10 minutes. Alan, we still haven't touched geothermal. We have put that on the shelf twice. Well, let's do our last commercial break, and then we'll be back with you.
Do you know what you're drinking? If you are drinking plastic bottled water, chances are you're consuming plastic contaminants, BPA, and other hormone-disrupting chemicals you cannot see with your naked eye. Those empty plastic bottles take up to 450 years to decompose. In the meantime, plastic bottles are polluting the environment. They are dangerous to the planet and our health. The safer solution is to acquire your own Kangen alkaline water filtration system, and you'll never have to buy toxic bottled water again. Help save the planet and drink clean water for less than the price you'll pay for acid plastic bottled water over the next few years. The Kangen technology is the world's most popular, most acquired water immunizer. For more information, you can call or WhatsApp us on 917-207-1307. That's 917-207-1307. Change your water, change your life.
Pico, the way to go for residential, commercial, and industrial wiring, data, security, UPS and generator installation. When you need electrical work done now, done right, done at an affordable price, contact Finney's Electrical Company. Call or WhatsApp 665-1916 or email pico_1166@yahoo.com. Pico, the way to go.
Tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. Tell me if I'm good enough for you, good enough for you.
Welcome back. It's Powell Overload. Alan Powell and decided to join his father tonight, and we don't do this very often. So every time I get him on radio, it is my pleasure to have a good public chat with him, so that we can look at the issues affecting not just St. Kitts and Nevis, but the world. You see, that's how we started tonight. Alan, we have put geothermal on the back burner for a long, long time. So it might be useful for us to get engaged tonight and say a couple things about geothermal. Let's start here.
I have no further updates since the last time, except to say that because of the Saudi Development Fund, we have secured the gap funding that we were seeking for the drilling phase, which means that we now have $17 million from the CDB, $20 million from the Saudis, and which allows us to move forward. The bids, as I understand it, should be opened the end of this month. We went to the second round of bidding on the drilling, and I'm hopeful that this time around we will have had a successful bid and we'll be able to move forward very shortly. So I'm hopeful that by the next press conference, God willing, I will have something to report substantively on where we are in terms of geothermal.
Some Christians have had a problem with Mark and his God because he said God willing. And some Christians are wondering if God is never willing for Mark.
I'm telling you.
When he comes to press conferences, he say, by the next press conference, God willing. And he comes back and he has no further update. So it means that maybe his God was not willing. Let's go to the second one.
The geothermal project, we have had no real indication of any significant escalation in cost. I think the pricing models that we saw are staying within range that we're working with. You're right, the tendering process had failed, and we have resubmitted. And I'm told that the new tenders, which should have been open at the end of February, they gave an extension until the 5th of May. That will be the new date. So we expect.
Okay, that didn't add much, really. I'll play one more, Alan, before we get your comment.
Project, you're right, and my update remains what I gave on the last occasion. And we are, I can say, closer now because the bids should be opened by the 8th of May. I think that's the date, PS, that I'm given, the 8th of May. So various companies, I'm told we have 9 or so companies are bidding on the production well drilling, and so we anticipate that by the 8th of May. So God willing, by the next press conference, I should be able to tell you what those bids look like, how many companies would have bid. I should also say,
I don't know which God he prays to, but there is some consistency in that God is never willing for him.
It's always an issue. And based off what I'm seeing here, we have secured the finances for the drilling. I am looking at the Article 4 IMF report, and they speak to the IMF and they let the IMF know a lot of information. The first phase, which including the drilling, is supposed to be $30 million. So when you look at the 17 million we got from the CDB and the 20 from the Saudis, that's supposed to be enough to complete the first phase. I would like you to know that the second phase is 60 million United States dollars. And that would be the plant. And he is suggesting that within the 6 months that the drilling is going to take, that they are going to go back to the market and procure this further $60 million. Now, I just want you to bear in mind how long it has taken to get the first $30 million. When we are going to go back to the market and to procure a further 60 in 6 months. $60 million is more than half of the budget. The Premier said he don't know the GDP, but as far as the budget, the revenues, $60 million would represent more than half of the total revenue of Nevis at this point in time. So, and that also does not bear in mind the last part, and this is only phase one. The last part of phase one is the transmission line. Currently, I think they say we have 11 kilovolt lines. We would have to replace those with 66 kilovolt lines, and that would have to be both in Nevis and St. Kitts, as well as running underwater and them type of thing. That would be a further 50 million United States dollars. So we have a long way to go in order to complete this project.
Alan, in 2012-2013, Mark Brantley campaigned and CCM campaigned that they were going to flick the switch for geothermal if they won the election. They won the election in early 2013. In 2017, they staged the most elaborate hoax that we have witnessed in St. Kitts Nevis. They brought a drill rig here from mid-America, spent at least $5 million. The Premier was on the rig, cutting a ribbon in his hard hat and all of that. They won the election in 2017, and within months, the drillers had packed up and disappeared from Nevis. From 2017 until now, every single election, We have heard of a well that was abandoned because it was improperly drilled. We have heard of $17 million from the Caribbean Development Bank and 20 from the Saudis. But we have not, and we have heard about bids and bid opening since May, and up to now, we have not seen the award of the bid for the drillers. But in the meantime, we have had a resolution in the federal parliament, which was read by the Prime Minister Drew, and a response from Mark Brantley, seconding that resolution. And in addition to all of that, I think when people realized that what was happening is that the geothermal was being shifted or grabbed, taken away from Nevis and placed down in Basti in St. Kitts, I believe it was based on that we heard this comment.
But it's really of some concern, and it will be going forward an issue, believe it or not, mark my word, it will be an issue going forward as to the control of geothermal. It will be an issue going forward. My word.
It would be.
It can be a political issue going forward.
Let me put it this way. If any government in Charlestown were to hand over the geothermal project to Basti, that would be political suicide. And I put it as plain and as blunt as that.
Political suicide, Alan. Perhaps the government administered by CCM, they have already committed political suicide, because I don't even know who analyzed the bids. I know when we did the geothermal project early with West Indies Power, those bids were reviewed and analyzed in Charlestown, with help from the OAS and some help from the Caribbean Development Bank, but they were analyzed in Charlestown, not overseas. They have yet to tell us who shouldn't be will now, should have performed the analysis on the bids that came in, and who made the recommendation as to who should get the contract.
Well, I listened to my premier extensively. And on the show with the king, this and that, he would have said that they're also doing the evaluation in phases, and he said the first phase was the technical evaluation, and the second phase is the financial evaluation. I think he would have said that the CDB is in the process, or they should have completed their evaluation since the 15th of September. God willing, he's gonna share information about that at the next press conference. I would imagine it would be on Monday, about that aspect. When it comes to the geothermal, I'm confused. I think he said that they are in the process of negotiating with landowners. Mr. Premier, guess what? I know one of the landowners, them know. And I haven't heard anything yet. And I promise you, you ain't gonna get to build wherever road you want unless you speak to that specific landowner. So I will know for sure when geothermal is getting ready to go there in a serious manner.
But Alan, remember, it took a long time plus a loan from National Bank for them to be able to pay for the airport lands. What make you believe that they are going to be able to get the money, first of all, to pay for the geothermal lands? Hold a minute with your response. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, good evening to you too, gentlemen. Real quickly, the control of the geothermal, right? How could we give that to the federal government, right? With that clause 113 in the Constitution. You know, I just listened to you playing that clip with Fran and Naya there. I don't really see where the premier can really do that to the Nevis people, because we see that situation played out with the U.S. President Trump with that Panama Canal situation. With Nevis having that clause 113, suppose the Nevis people vote to go secession sometime down the road in the future. How would Nevis stand individually on its own without that geothermal being in their own control?
Thank you very much, caller.
That's definitely gonna create a problem.
Thank you very much, caller, for your concern. There is only one way I would answer that, like Papa Board. Papa Board used to say, well, is in Antigua. So I would simply say, well, geothermal is in Nevis. Even if it comes to a split between Nevis and St. Kitts, what St. Kitts going to do? Come over and say, hey, listen, the resolution gave us control, so we want control. So what is going to happen? They'll start a war?
Well, I need you to know that the first clause in the fair share agreement wasn't CBI revenue. It was a split on natural resources. That was the first thing. So I don't know if we are going to negotiate, for example, for some St. Kitts sunlight. Cause they are the ones with solar panels. So I don't know if we are gonna get our fair share of sunlight. And when I say that, the premier has also been selling this fantasy of 100% geothermal power.
A long time.
From what I have seen in other nations, because there are actually 7 nations that are 100% renewable energy sustainable. None of them is 100% of any type of power. It is not intelligent to depend on any one source of anything. They make use of hydroelectric, they make use of winds, they make use of sunlight, and they make use of geothermal. But it is not intelligent in any aspect to put all of your eggs in one basket and to feel like geothermal is going to be the solution to every aspect. I do believe and I maintain that it is the most important project in the Federation, but it by itself still would not be enough. It would simply be a catalyst. But we still need to look into wind energy. We still need to look into solar energy. And if we could do anything with hydroelectric, we also need to look into those avenues as well. So it's not going to solve every problem. And he needs to stop saying that it will solve every problem. It has not solved every problem in any nation. And ours should not be the ones to just say we're going 100% in that. We should be diverse.
Mm-hmm. For hydroelectric, you're going to have to build some huge dams, though. And we don't have the capacity in terms of water for that because we don't have the rivers and that kind of stuff. Alan, it's 6 minutes to 11 o'clock. I'm going to open the floor. Anything that we didn't touch that you want to touch, or anything that you want to repeat, go right ahead.
Listen, with regards to the SSZ, I have not. Well, you know what? I'm gonna end off with something what I had intent to start with. I'm gonna end off like that. So I want the premier to know that when he said that Janice made $1.2 million from her sale of the property, Mr. Premier, I was right there doing calculations and I got the very same figure. And I am therefore confident about the rest of the information I'm about to say. I also calculated how much the real estate agent would have made from approaching landowners if they were to be the one to successfully get this 2,000 acres. The real estate agent would make anywhere between $57.5 million if they collect 10%. If they gave a slight discount, it would be $45.99 million. And in the case of 6%, if it's a super discount, they're still walking away with $34.99 million. That's the real estate agent. That's how much they would be walking away with. And to show my working, I only got all of those figures from the premier, because he would have said that the land over there is worth between $5 and $6. And what that tell Alan is $5.50 is a good way to work out the maths. And those were the figures I get. They were accurate in the case of Janice. So I am fairly confident that they are accurate in the case of the real estate agent who would have procured this land. Now, I only say all of that to say this. There has to be, by any reasonable standard, a conflict of interest here. Because these figures and the obtaining of this money is dependent on there being some type of project that we're looking at. And if the premier is responsible for giving approval to the developers, it directly impacts the amount of money that the real estate agent makes. If the real estate agent happens to have a relationship with the premier, even better, we got links. So there has to be, because I heard the premier say that there is no conflict of interest. I agree with him when he said that the government is not selling land over there, and that does not bring the conflict of interest. For me, the conflict of interest arises where the premier, because they say the premier is the person in charge when it comes to Nevis, is the one who would be approving. In this scenario, the very simple thing to do is, Mr. Premier, just recuse yourself. Just let the government decide it without you. Eric could handle that, I would think. The other thing I wanted to say was, I don't like the way how the premier has painted Janice as far as the executor story. Similarly, I have heard people say that what the act, from the NRP perspective, I've heard people say what this act is doing is amounting to giving up sovereignty in essence. I have heard the premier use the same logic to say, well, even though Janice not being owned the land, even though she's an executor, in essence, if you an executor, you own the land too. And Mr. Premier, what good of the goose got to be good of the gander? I don't agree. I have not spoken about the loss of sovereignty issue. I have spoken about the best practices and some other issues that I see. But I hope Janice stays strong in the lawsuit. I'm very interested to see what is going to happen. I've noticed that Weber Herbert has indicated to the Premier that, sir, when you come in on these airways, you're on your own. Don't come on here and talk about that. Which is very interesting to me. But I've even seen the Premier, someone ask him, well, Mr. Premier, you said that she owned the land, but you come and tell her everything about will. An executor own land. It's very important. The Premier is a smart enough man. He's an attorney to know executors don't own anything. Beneficiaries don't own anything. And although he has pinpointed one executor, he has failed to say that is co-executors. And when they are co-executors, you both have to agree. And you also are asked to operate in a fiduciary responsibility. If you do not follow the wishes of the will, you are in breach of the fiduciary responsibility, for example. Somebody left a will and he said, sell the land and split the money. You can't just stop there and hold up the thing. Because even if Janice had found out, hey, this is what they're doing it for, and the other executor, the beneficiaries and them could sue and say, hey, get on with it. And we have not seen. I just want everything to be portrayed fairly. And I feel like the Premier going to have to pay for those statements. And apologize as well. Definitely. I think he's going to have to apologize publicly for those statements. He has had enough time to say, Because even I thought Janice had gone a little bit too early, but I went back and listened to the comments. I've heard comments he said after that, and he has not sufficiently covered himself in the blood of Christ to get away with it. And Mr. Premier, remember, your God not willing. You now come back to us with updates to indicate that your God is willing. So I am interested in this case. This case is not the first time I spoke about the SSC. This is not the fundamental thing. I think that this should have never been in the spotlight for with the SSC of bringing in this personal aspect. Everything about the SSC should have been debated concerning the legitimate concerns around the SSC and not anybody's personal holdings. I say in my mind, as I say, I feel like the Premier is going to have to pay on this one. Either that or he's going to have to apologize loudly and publicly. NNC. But yeah, that's the laws I have. I could let you go to sleep.
And Van Radio as well, where he made the statement.
Well, as I tell you, Webo, by letting the Premier know, Mr. Premier, you're on your own, he has at least done something to say, listen, Van Radio, no, you know that. He has kind of at least done enough, or done something. I think Webo is willing to say, that was incorrect. Should be. Because I don't know why you would put yourself on the line for Mark in that aspect. But this only becomes a thing now of credibility, because it's now like, why you have to push to make it seem like she personally owned the land? No. And
more than that, Alan, if they have only been given a deposit, a small deposit, why say that she has collected millions, knowing that not to be the truth?
Well, has not provided a contractor or anything?
Mm-hmm.
You gone and you dig up the will of a man who you and he got a lot from. Come on. It wasn't good farm. It was not good bowling at all. Sometimes it's not worth it. And that was not worth it in my estimation. And to keep on pushing and insinuating, well, she's the executor, and when you're the executor, I mean, it's like you own the land. No, Mr. Premier, you know a little better than that, and you went a little too far.
Listen, we've been together since 8 o'clock this evening. We do Powell overload 2 or 3 times a year. And we had a whole set of topics to touch on tonight. Some we just brushed. We didn't go in depth on the hospital. And we had so much more on the geothermal and fair share. But we'll probably do another Powell overload at the end of the year, start of the new year, when we'll get a lot more to talk about. The press conference, I understand, Alan, is on Tuesday, so not Monday. Mark your calendar for Tuesday.
If we get the auditor's report, because we have some issues as well with auditors, y'all need to stand up. You cannot have the premier or the prime ministers out here questioning whether or not something in the budget, the audited budgeted reports, are in fact the full amounts, and not come out and your office make a statement. An auditor, you could also point out that the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee could call the auditor.
Correct. But the chairman doesn't even know he's the chairman.
Well, he knows he's the chairman when month end coming up. Because you better believe the check better cash.
Mm.
You better believe.
Listen, we want to thank everybody for staying the journey tonight. 3 hours and tell me, Alan, I going where I live. You home, I going find where I live. Always a pleasure talking to you. Always good to have you share information which is properly researched and well presented. And the people have stayed with us tonight, which means that they actually do enjoy Powell Overload. Thank you again, and we'll set the date when next we will get back together on Powell Overload number 6. And thank you very much to Tulu and Dr. Daly. I miss you guys tonight. Dr. Daly, I didn't get any hot chocolate because you're not here to make it. And we didn't sing for the people, so that's not good. Alan, have a good night. Say hello to Dahlia and the rest of the family. And I'm going where I live. Take care. Okay.
Tell me what you want, please. Tell me what you need. Tell me if I'm good enough for you, good enough for you, Tell me what you want, please. Tell me what you need. Tell me if I'm good enough for you, good enough for you, Tell me what you want, please. Tell me what you need.